This president has promised us many times he has a pen and he has a phone. He's going to use the regulatory process to bypass Congress. And I'm so thankful that we have attorneys general across this country who have been on the front line holding the president accountable as he's acted in that fashion.
The idea that we are going to do a 180 on climate policy, I think is disastrous from a number of perspectives.
Won't be abolishing the EPA, but they're going to be rolling back hundreds, if not thousands, of regulations.
Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt stating his opposition to President Obama's environmental regulations. And as you could see, Democrats and Republicans with sharply different reactions to Trump naming Pruitt to be his EPA administrator. Let's bring in our panel. Steve Hayes from the Weekly Standard, editor-in-chief of LifeZette, Laura Ingram, and Charles Lane of the Washington Post. Well, let's start with the nomination of Pruitt as EPA administrator. He says the debate over climate change is far from settled. He's part of several lawsuits against EPA regulations on greenhouse gas emissions. Laura, your thoughts about this nomination?
It is going to drive the left absolutely crazy, which it started to do. I think they're going to fight this as hard as they fight anything the Trump administration puts forward. It goes to the heart of their argument that the planet's warming, cut greenhouse gas emissions, we'll save the planet, the oceans won't rise, we won't have destruction along the coastline. And I understand that, but it's like the church of global warming has also, in the eyes of many, completely subsumed the idea that business still has to exist. There has to be a balance between protecting the environment and having business be able to operate, not unfettered, but with some degree of freedom in order to create jobs. So does it surprise me that Trump picked him? Absolutely not. But they're going to have to be ready for these hearings and be ready with, I think, a responsible approach to the concern that we want an environment that's protected. But there are a lot of people out there, Professor John Christie, University of Alabama, peer-reviewed studies. He's not a climate skeptic. He thinks the Earth is getting hotter, but he also thinks the dire predictions of the climate change folks are way over the top. Very respected, others like him. But there's a lot of intolerance on the other side as well.
Steve, when Trump met with Al Gore this week, and then you've got to remember a couple of weeks ago when he met with the New York Times and said he had an open mind about climate change and the Paris Climate Accords, there were some conservatives who were wondering whether Trump had gone soft on environmental regulations. With the appointment of Scott Pruitt to run the EPA, was that all a head fake?
Yeah, it very well might have been, but it's clear that those concerns were unfounded. I mean, this is the person you'd want if you wanted to challenge the EPA. I mean, Pruitt is a thoughtful movement conservative who's been doing this for quite a while. He ran on it when he ran for Attorney General in Oklahoma. He executed the plan that he ran on, and he was creative in using the law to push back on federal regulations that many people, not just business people, but average citizens around the country think go too far, not just on the EPA, but on Obamacare and other things. I think this is exactly the kind of person you want in an administration. And it is funny to watch this sort of liberal heads explode as this happens. Nobody should be surprised that Donald Trump is going to nominate somebody who basically agrees with the kinds of things that he's argued. Back when President Obama won and he was filling out his cabinet and selecting his top staffers and advisors, the left said, well, we won. We get to make these choices. Well, now
elections have consequences.
Donald Trump can make the argument he won. He gets to make these choices.
It is interesting, as part of the Trump surge in the stock market, energy prices in the wake of this announcement went up. I want to go with you, Chuck, to this question of the reaction by Democrats who seem to be more upset about this than any other nomination that Trump has made so far. Usually in a transition, there's one person that the opposition party looks to knock off because they can't go after everybody. Is this the one? Is this going to be the battle in the confirmation hearings?
There's going to be a lot of competition for that honor. But don't forget, there's a lot of important money in the Democratic camp from Tom Steyer, among others, that flows into the Democratic Party based on environmental issues. So those kinds of people will really be arguing to take a stand on Scott Pruitt. But here's the catch. There are a number of Democratic senators facing re-election in 2018 in red states, or indeed in coal-burning states, often the same thing. And I'm thinking about people like Claire McCaskill, Bob Casey in Pennsylvania, Debbie Stabenow in Michigan, even someone like Sherrod Brown of Ohio, who's very liberal but is a coal-dependent state. And I think those folks will face a real dilemma in how to handle the future of the Clean Power Plan to the extent that it's an issue in this case. And so, of course, the question will be, do we filibuster Pruitt? And you're going to need 40 solid Democratic votes to do that. By the way, on the other side, there's at least one Republican I can think of, Susan Collins, who might have her concerns about.
I was going to say, I mean, there's also the possibility of Republicans going to the Democratic side and opposing him. And this is with the nuclear option that Harry Reid put into effect. 50 votes is what you need.
Yeah, and of course, I forgot to mention, but Joe Manchin of the coal state of West Virginia will probably like this appointment quite a bit. So it's not exactly a straightforward partisan.
I want to ask you, Laura, about another pick that the president made today, and that was Andy Pudsner, who is a fast food executive, Hardee's, Carl's Jr. He's an outspoken critic of Obamacare and its impact on workers and business, an outspoken critic of the minimum wage and the administration overtime rules. What are your thoughts about his pick?
I think he's going to annoy both sides. I think he's extremely smart, obviously very accomplished, and I think you can make a case for him. However, on the issue of immigration and foreign workers coming into the United States, there's a lot of folks out there, Breitbart has a big piece tonight, that Pudsner is not good on those issues, that he's kept wages very low at his company, not just against the minimum wage, but by having mostly immigrant workers in places like Carl's Jr. So is he opposed to one of the bedrock ideas that, of course, President-elect Trump ran on? So that is a concern. I've been getting lots of emails over the last several hours about this pick. So we'll see how that shakes out. But it could be one of those odd picks that annoys both sides.
He's also a big exponent of automation and the idea that you can save a lot of money by having machines on employees. And one of his arguments is if you make the cost of labor too expensive, people are just going to go to machines in places where they
we'll
can.
See how well that works out for them.
All right.